the autumn of 1781, the most dangerous man in the British camp wasn't a soldier. He carried no rank. He gave no orders. The British generals trusted him completely, and that was their first mistake, because the man listening to their plans was a spy. And under American law, he didn't even own himself. His name was James. History would let him choose a second one. James was born into slavery in Virginia, the property of a man named William Armistead. He had no surname of his own. Enslaved people rarely did. When the Revolution reached Virginia in 1781, it came alongside a young French general fighting for the American cause, the Marquis de Lafayette. James asked his enslaver for permission to join him. Permission was granted, and James walked into a war being fought over a freedom that would not, for him, apply. Lafayette didn't need another soldier. He needed eyes inside the British command. So James took the most dangerous job on the continent. He would pose as a man fleeing slavery to serve the British, who had promised freedom to the enslaved who joined them. He would offer himself as a guide, and he would walk, unarmed, into the headquarters of the British Army. For a captured soldier, the worst case was a prison camp. For James, there was no such protection. A black man caught spying could expect no exchange, no mercy, only a rope. It worked better than anyone dared hope. James earned the trust of General Cornwallis himself, moving through the camp freely, noting troop movements, supply lines, plans. Then Cornwallis made a request that turned James into something rarer than a spy. He asked James to spy on the Americans. Now James carried information in both directions. To the British, a careful diet of half-truths. To Lafayette, the truth. That autumn, the British Army dug in at a tobacco port called Yorktown. The intelligence flowing out of that camp, some of it through James, helped the Americans and their French allies see exactly what they faced. When the siege closed in that October, Cornwallis surrendered. The battle that effectively ended the war. A new nation was born. James had helped deliver it. And then James went back to slavery. It wasn't an oversight. It was the law. Virginia had promised freedom to enslaved men who served as soldiers. James had served as a spy. The statute didn't cover him. The country he'd risked his life for handed him back to the man who owned him. For years, he petitioned for his freedom. In 1784, Lafayette wrote a testimonial in his own hand, vouching for the man who'd risked everything. In 1787, Virginia finally granted James his freedom. In gratitude, he took a new surname, the name of the general who hadn't forgotten him. From then on, he was James Armistead Lafayette. He bought land. He built a life as a free man. And in 1824, when an aging Lafayette returned to tour the country he'd helped free, the two men met again. By one account, Lafayette saw James in the crowd and embraced him. A general and a spy. Two old men who'd gambled their lives on a promise. James Armistead Lafayette helped win a nation its freedom, decades before that nation would extend freedom to people who looked like him. He lived in the gap, the long, painful distance between freedom promised and freedom delivered. Juneteenth marks that distance. The day in 1865 when the last enslaved Americans finally learned they were free, years after the promise was made. James knew that gap intimately. He'd spent his life inside it. He was never just property. He was a patriot who had to ask permission to be free in the country he helped build. Remember his name. He chose it himself.